What are you listening to? I said, what are you listening to?
What?
What are you listening to?
Death metal, bitch!
What do you think you're at listening to death metal satanic music? You conjure up the queer fella and he'll drag you down to Hades.
Ah, you spoil all my fun.
Oh, summoning up the queer fella's far from fun. Now tell me the 6 things I told you not to do that summons up the queer fella.
All right. Number 1, listening to death metal, bitch.
Yep,
Number 2, spitting in the church.
yep.
Number 3, shouting at goats. Number 4, having dirty dreams about Mary Black.
Number 5.
Oh, right. Number 5, putting Go Faster stripes on your car. And number 6, microwaving pets.
Have you fed that cat?
Eat that, you flea-bitten, mange-ridden yoke.
Go on, you dirty devil, you. Right, so no more summoning up the queer fella, you feckless rogue. You'd end up like that poor Egypt, Damien McArsagon.
Who?
You know him. Damien McArsagon from 6 Mile Hole.
No. What about him?
He used to foot around with the hooved one. He doesn't anymore, though. Not after that evening in Gussie Balochan's pub back in 1985. Damien was full of hot air. A real show-off. Coming up with all sorts of stories about the queer fella. He'd tell them of how he'd outwitted the devil in a game of poker and how Beelzebub was doing all sorts of favours for him.
What kind of favours? Like putting the bins out?
No, you gobsheen. He was talking a load of old fibs. Anyway, the barman asked Damien what price would he put on his soul. The bar went silent, and Damien said, I'd sell my soul for a night with a fancy woman. Just like one of them ones you'd see up in Dublin. Even before he'd finished the sentence, a raven-haired beauty waltzed into the bar. She had eyes of fire and lips like cherries. A beauty to behold.
A bit like Mary Black.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Jeez.
All the men in the bar were captivated. No one had seen such a vision round those parts before. Could I buy you a glass of stout? Asked Damien, mesmerised. She said nothing. Flicked a 50-pence piece 60 feet across the room, and it landed in the old jukebox.
Good shot.
She grabbed Damien by the hand as the music began.
If it wasn't Wind Beneath My Wings.
No.
Do it right. Wannabe by the Spicy Girls.
No. It was Lady in Red. Oh, they danced for hours. He was totally besotted. He could resist no longer, so he kissed her cherry lips. He felt her tongue slither down his throat, pierce his heart, and wrap itself around his very soul. And it was only then he noticed, instead of dainty feet, she had cloven hooves. With his identity revealed, the queer fella vanished, leaving nothing but a cloud of smoke and the pungent smell of sulphur.
So did your man survive or what, Podge?
He did for a couple of miserable years anyway. Then he died, but no graveyard would take him. Sure, where would you bury someone without a soul?
Oh, no. I won't be teasing the queer fella anymore, Podge.
Glad to hear it, Rodge.
Do you fancy a tongue sandwich, Podge?
I don't mind if I do. Them sandwiches are in the shape of a pentangle. The mark of the queer fella himself. All this talk of the queer fella's reminded me. I must go to the chiropodist one of these days.
Ah, you're a good cat, Pox. You're a wicked fella.
Yeah,
and
well.
that's right, and you've got the mange. Mwah!
Yeah.
You've got a bit of the old mange.
Rudge. Have you got enough of them scabs for a good stock yet?
I have. Hang on.
You know what Granny's like? She just have a good thick gravy with her meat.
Ah, yeah, I think there's enough there now.
Ah, good.
Go on,
That'll do. Go on, that'll do.
Oh, by the way,
What?
did I tell you I gave the hooligan's daughter a ride this afternoon?
You what?
I gave her a ride home.
That's what I thought you said. What have I told you about hitchhikers?
Not to give them a lift,
Why?
because he might be the queer fella in disguise.
That's right, the queer fella. You'll end up like our cousin, Fintan O'Leprosy.
Who? I never heard of him.
Oh, there's a reason for that. You see, he just bought a car up in the Big Smoke.
Mullingar.
Yeah, and he was driving home with a I've got a new car sort of head on him. He was doing about 110 on the M6, somewhere between Enfield and Kinnegad, with his radio full blast, listening to Bat Out of Hell.
Oh, that's a great number, by Meatloaf. I've got that tape.
Oh, shut up. Look, anyway, right? It was hitting twilight when in front of him he saw this blonde young one throwing a lift.
I bet he stopped.
Well, of course he did. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Well, that was the last mistake Fintan O'Leprosy ever made. He thought he'd impress her with his flash new interior and leather upholstery. She got in full of smiles, and he was delighted he'd picked her up, as she was great company for the long stretch of road. This new car of mine's a babe magnet, he thought to himself, as she leaned over to kiss him right on the mouth. At the very moment their lips met, there was an almighty bump.
They must have hit something.
That's what he thought. Normally he wouldn't give a bog if he'd hit something on the road, but the girl seemed very distressed and asked him to check.
Ah, girls are like that.
He turned the engine off and walked round to the back of the car, but he could see nothing, and the ground was clear behind him. Suddenly, he heard a piercing laugh that pained his ears and shook his soul. And at that very moment, the engine started up, and the car shot away. But the strangest thing of all was in the last glimmer of twilight, he could see himself driving away, with no sign of the girl in the passenger seat. "My lovely car!" shouted Fintan, as he fell to his knees, only then noticing his feminine hands and nylon stockings.
Oh, jeez.
She had not only stolen his car, but stolen his body.
Body
transferal! That's right! You see, a young girl was hitchhiking on that stretch of road in 1982 when some flash young bucko ran her over and left her dying on the roadside. Her ghost swore to wreak revenge, and any time someone gives her a lift, she tricks them and steals their mortal form. And their soul is left to wander the lonely road as the ghostly hiker, until they too can hitch a ride out of hell.
Well, that's it. A hooligan's daughter can walk the 15 miles from the abattoir from now on.
No, you're
She's
right.
not getting
Never.
my soul. No.
Hey, Roger, look!
Would you look? Would you look? Pox is licking his arse again.
Oh, pets do the cutest
Pets do
things.
the cutest
They
things.
do.
He's a lovely little fella.
Get
He's
out
a
of that
lovely
potty!
little man.
Get out of that potty!
potty!
I said get out!
What?
The curse of the zombie nun struck them down. They all burnt in hell. The end. Soft out rubbish. Where is that gobshite? He's been gone all day. Oh, what kept you?
Well, I was just knocking the cat out for the night.
How'd you get all up in Dublin?
Oh, it was grand, but I tell you what now.
Yeah. Shut up. Did you get me, special magazine?
Indeed I did.
Good man. Give us a look. Jesus. Look at that. She's a beauty.
A beauty to behold.
I tell you what, Rog. I'd smother me mother and father for a ride on her.
Look at the high beams on that. Yep, the Massey Ferguson 5000. The tractor of our dreams. Tell you what, Podge. After all that trekking down to Dublin, I really fancy an out lying in the morning.
Oh, no, I wouldn't be too keen, Rog.
Huh?
No.
Why is that, Podge?
Well, do you remember that fella, Henry Madden?
No.
Huh? I'm sure you've heard of him. Henry the Sleeper Madden. He was never out of bed before 10 o'clock.
The old gobsheen lazy bones.
You see, it was his first day as a travelling salesman for O'Dwyer's Fancy Goods.
Oh, come here now. Do they sell the snow globes? Because I've got one with a great rooster's claw in it.
Shut up, you gobsheen. I'm telling the story. If only Henry had set off on time that morning, instead of lying around in bed, he'd have gotten back on the main road before that terrible storm in February 1957. Well, lo and behold, the poor Aegis car breaks down in the middle of nowhere.
You take out that gobsheen Aegis!
He was soaked through walking round in circles in the pouring rain. He was just about fed up when he saw a house. There was a glimmer of oil lamp in the window. He followed it up the drive in search of a dry spot to rest his head for the night. A woman dressed in black met him at the door, almost as if she was expecting him. "The house is a little full," she said. "We're having a wake. Everyone's in bed. The only place we have left is in the front room. I'm sure you'll find somewhere to lay your weary bones." He walked into the front room. It was pitch dark. He turned to ask the woman if she had a candle, but she was gone.
Jeez.
Poor Henry was exhausted. All he wanted to do was lie down and get a bit of kip. So he fumbled around the room and eventually found a box bed. It was a little small, but comfortable nonetheless.
I bet he had a great ass sleep.
Oh, yeah, but for the first time in his life, he woke up early.
Why's that, Podge?
It was the hammering of the nails into the lid of his very own coffin that woke him. Bang, 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 bang.
I suppose Henry had the last laugh, really.
Oh, yeah. Haven't a lion since 1957.
A lovely, deep sleep.
Yeah, 6 foot under deep. Yeah. Good night, Rog. See you in the morning.
Yeah, bright and early, Podge.
I thought you said you'd knocked the cat out.
Oh, I must have just stunned him. Hang on.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
All right, yeah, a cheese grater. All right, would that not hurt?
Who are you on to?
I'll tell you, I saw this advertisement in this magazine, right? And it says, if you're a bad boy, call this number. So I did.
Yeah.
And this lady here, right? She says she'll come round here and spank me for £20.
Tell her to bog off. Sure, I'll smack the head off you for 15.
All right. Hello? My brother says he'll do it for 15.
Look, will you settle down, you feckless rogue?
Yeah.
You better get your rest. We're off to Uncle Nee Scrollocks tomorrow.
Oh, Nee Scrollocks, right.
Yeah. You'll go blind, you dirty devil!
For what? Bite me nails!
Oh no, it's started.
What started?
There's no turning back now.
What are you talking about, Podge?
You'll end up like Cormac McAnus from Ring's End.
Who's he?
I'll tell you who's he. He was the only child of Phelim McAnus, a tram driver in Dublin. Oh, his parents doted on him. And they said they wanted him to grow up to be big and strong like his tram-driving dad.
Right.
So every evening, come 6 o'clock, Mammy would serve up dinner, consisting of a big hunk of red meat.
Lovely.
Whether it was a steak or in a stew, it was always there, which was a bit peculiar, because in those days, well, you'd need more than a tram driver's wage to put meat on the table 7 nights a week.
So where were they getting the meat from?
Well, that's what Nosy Nelligan from number 5 wondered, before she disappeared. Well, Mrs. McAnus, any ideas as to the whereabouts of Mrs. Doris Nelligan from number 5, have we at all?
What does she say?
Oh, Sergeant, I think she might have mentioned something about going up to her sisters in Donegal.
Was she lying, Podge?
She knew exactly where Mrs. Nelligan was. She was hanging up by a meat hook in the basement.
Jesus, they were eating the neighbours! Feckin' cannibals! Were they ever caught?
They were. You see, that was a long, hot summer that year. And as you well know, bodies don't keep well in the heat. When the guard came back acting on complaints of a smell escaping from their basement, he was a little more thorough in his investigations. And this time he discovered the corpse of Mrs. Nelligan.
Good, right. Well, that's
The spleen of Mrs. Dowdall's in teriyaki sauce and a nipple kebab made up from the local trade union workers' choir.
Lock up the flesh eaters and throw away the key!
That's what they did. And as punishment, they were only allowed to eat raw turnips. But they perished without the meat to support their cannibalistic urges.
So what happened to young McAnus?
Oh, he was sent to the nuns and raised as a strict vegetarian. Being only 5 at the time, he remembered nothing of his parents' grisly past.
I hate a happy ending.
Oh, it doesn't end there. You see, once you get a taste for human flesh, it's very hard to get it out of your system. Young McAnus was grand until his 16th birthday. A time of change for all young men.
You mean like, being fecked out of the Boy Scouts?
Kinda. Her name was Dimpna. It was their first date. He was giving her one of them, love bites at the films in Fairview when he got the cravings. She ended up with 6 stitches in the neck. The authorities feared the cravings were a family trait and wanted to lock him up. But the nuns took him back, this time under lock and key, where he had no human contact. They thought they could cure him with a vegetable diet.
Right.
But the cravings were too strong.
Yeah.
So he started biting his fingernails.
Which is?
He'd soon chewed down to the wrist. As the weeks passed, he polished off his legs.
Bollocks!
Yeah, that too. And by August of 1970, he had eaten his spare ribs. And by Christmas that year, there was only his head left.
Jesus, I'll never eat me nails again! So how long did the head survive?
Nobody knows. You see, in the cell there was a hole in the ground for a toilet. And as he was only the size of the head, he rolled himself down it.
Oh, right.
Through the sewers.
Right.
And out to God knows where. And rumour has it, he's still craving the flesh to this day.
I go on there and that.
Sure, I've seen him myself.
Where?
Right here in the bed. Lace the reindeer's food with arsenic. La, 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 la. What are you doing, Rodge?
Huh?
What are you doing?
It's me Satan list.
Don't you mean Santa list?
Nah. I've given up on him. He never brings me anything. I thought I'd try the queer fella for a change.
Yeah.
What? What?
There.
What?
I don't think even the queer fella could deliver you Mary Black.
There's no harm in dreaming, though.
Anyway, hey, all this talk of Mary Black's reminded me of something.
What?
Oh, it was the best Christmas ever. 1955, it was known as Black Christmas.
Oh, great! What happened?
Well, there was a family known as the Fitznobs, and there was a great to-do when they purchased Ballywank Manor in November 1955. The whole town were bending over backwards to please the new neighbours.
Great.
But the Fitznobs cocked their nose at the locals and treated them with disdain.
Sounds like a pack of snobby gobsheens to me.
They were. The locals grew to hate them, because despite their money, they never paid a bill or bade them good day. Late November, Fitznaub went on his usual trip to France to source wine for his famous Christmas party. He went to the old Montmartre area in Paris.
Oh, that's where them prosy women hang out, and them burlesque shows where brazen hussies flaunt their naked flesh.
Calm down, you feckless rogue. I'm telling the story, right?
Right.
Anyway, right? Old Fitznaub found a wine cellar run by an old blind man. There was a treasure trove of wines, and Fitznaub had the counter loaded with fine vintage bottles. But he wanted more. Now, what is your finest brandy, my good man? Said Fitznaub. My finest brandy is over there. There, monsieur. It dates back to the Napoleonic War, but it is not for sale. Said the blind man, as he pointed to a large cask. Everything is for sale when you've got my kind of money, barked Mr. Fitznaub, who had already grabbed a glass and downed some brandy from the tap before the old man could stop him. It was the most exquisite brandy Fitznaub had ever tasted.
But what happened then?
Oh, the old man got into a rage and kicked Fitznaub out of his shop. You must learn, monsieur, that some things are not for sale. Well, Fitznaub was furious and swore that the brandy would be his. That night, the old man's shop went up in flames. Everything was burnt to the ground, except for a barrel of brandy that was already on its way to Dublin.
That Fitznaub fella is some bucko.
Well, that Christmas there was a party like no other. All the Fitznobs, their cousins the Fitzgoolygods, and all kinds of upper-class snotty snoots were there, waffling on about golf courses and operas and the like.
They make me want to puke me spleen, those snooty, stuck-up arthagons.
Old Fitznaub gathered all his guests in the great hall. He stood up in a chair and announced that his present to everyone was a glass of the finest brandy they would ever taste. It dates back to the Napoleonic War, he told them, and bragged about how many millions of francs it had cost him to buy at auction.
The lying beggar.
Well, they all fell for it, and it was indeed the finest brandy they had ever tasted. The party went on till January 1st, and the barrel was drained dry. Old Fitznaub told his servant to get rid of the barrel, but the poor servant couldn't lift it. as it was mysteriously weighed down. Meanwhile, the Fitzgoblets were the first to die, followed by the Fitzgoolies, and soon after by the O'Gankeys. All died horrible, drawn-out, stench-ridden deaths.
The brandy?
Yeah, it was the brandy, all right.
Did it kill Fitznob?
No, he died of shock.
Huh?
You see, they took the still heavy but empty barrel into the yard, and Fitznob prized the lid open, and to his utter horror, he found a perfectly preserved body of a Napoleonic general inside.
What was a feckin' body doing in a barrel?
Well, in those times they didn't like to bury their dignitaries on the battlefield. So the remains were preserved in barrels of brandy and shipped home for a proper burial. But sometimes the barrels went astray, and poor old Fitznob had stolen the barrel that had contained the body of General Derriere, the first Frenchman to die of the Black Plague. The brandy had not only preserved the body, it had preserved the disease as well.
That Black Plague's a bugger when it gets a grip.
The death toll was about 100. The Fitznob family line was wiped out, as were all the upper class for 100 miles around. And that's the story of Black Christmas.
Lord saves and blesses, that was shocking.
Yeah,
Are you going to leave something out for Santa all the same?
oh yeah! If that beardy fecker comes down our chimney, this bear trap will take his leg clean off.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, Podge.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, me arse, Rodge.
That's right.
Ho, ho, ho!
What's all that racket down there?
It's Granny Leprosy's woman's group.
And what are the old bats up to now?
Well, you know the way this was bridge night? They got bored with it, so it's human sacrifice night instead.
Hey, you're pulling me leg.
What did you say?
You're pulling me leg.
Oh, I wouldn't say that too lightly. A day may come when you'll be begging me to pull your leg.
What are you talking about?
You've no idea, do you?
No.
Where that saying, pulling me leg, comes from.
It's not rude, is it? Like choking the chicken and spanking the monkey and pulling...
No! It's a horrible saying, and I'll tell you why. Back in the 1800s, a young man named Oliver Feely was heading up to Dublin for his first time ever. He was from a town called Borris-in-Arsery, and this was an adventure of a lifetime.
People didn't get round much in them days, so...
You're right, but there was a reason for his visit. He was coming up to see his sister, who was working as a shopkeeper's assistant on Parliament Street. Young Oliver arrived in Dublin and was awestruck by all the tall buildings and the hustle and bustle of the place. He had a couple of hours to kill before his sister finished work, so he decided to walk around and take in some of the sights.
Did he go down to Monto?
No, you dirty beggar! He was only an innocent young fella. He crossed Capel Street Bridge and turned by chance into Little Britain Street, where there was a bit of a commotion. There was a street-side public hearing going on, presided over by the notorious Judge Breckenone, or Breakneck, as he used to be known. He was a man of no tolerance that believed in the practice of summary execution of a criminal immediately on conviction.
He's a bit of a bollock then.
Indeed he was. Well, there was a highwayman on trial who was desperately trying to save his own hide. I wasn't the ringleader, Your Honour, he pleaded. Well, show me your accomplice and I'll show you mercy, said Judge Breakneck. And with that, the highwayman indiscriminately pointed into the crowd and shouted, "That's my accomplice!" His finger was pointing straight at Oliver.
Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
A charge of robbery was made against young Oliver. He pleaded his innocence as the guards hauled him through the crowd to stand trial. He begged the judge to fetch his sister to confirm his innocence, but it was useless. Judge Breakneck sentenced Oliver to death by hanging at the public gibbet in Bagot Street that very afternoon. With a number of other prisoners, Oliver was driven by cart to the place of execution. Rotten fruit and human waste showered down from the open windows above the narrow streets.
Yee-haw! There's a-gonna be a hanging!
But one of the people taunting the guilty stopped suddenly when she recognized one of the condemned men. It was her very own brother. "Oliver!" she screamed as she ran out into the street after the cart. By the time she got to the gibbet, her brother already had a noose around his neck. She pleaded for leniency, but Judge Breakneck just laughed.
The evil old bugger!
"Oh, it's my brother," she yelled. "He's no criminal. He only came up this morning to visit me." "My decision is final," the judge said. "Hang the highwayman." And with that, poor Oliver was hoisted off the ground and writhed in agony from the gibbet. You see, they hadn't invented the gallows at that time, with its drop door to break the necks instantly system.
Right.
So it could take 20 minutes or more for young Oliver to be strangled to death.
20 minutes? That judge has no heart at all.
Ah, he did. The judge decided as he looked at the pathetic state of the young lad's sister to show some leniency for once.
So he cut your man down, I suppose, did he?
Not at all.
Huh?
He let the sister pull on Oliver's legs to speed up the deathly process by snapping his neck.
Oh.
And that's where the term, "I'm only pulling your leg," comes from. A saying not to be flittle-flattled around the place by omadons like you.
Podge, would you come along and pull my leg and put me out of my misery if I was being hung?
Ah, it depends.
Oh, what?
Whether it's that good on telly or not. Oh,
There's Granny and her woman's group performing another human sacrifice.
it's great to see old people so active.
That's great. Night, Podge.
Night, Rodge. How'd you get on?
Ah, grand, I got some meat for the dinner anyway.
Good man, bit of beef, rack of lamb.
Jesus, I don't know. They don't put labels on the stuff they throw in the skip at the back of the abattoir.
Grand. Mind you, I did manage to procure a couple of sheep's eyes.
Oh, you beauty. There's nothing I like better than boiled sheep's eyes and a pound of pig's pudding for breakfast.
Can we have dippy soldiers with the sheep's eye?
Oh, yeah, but don't let Granny O'Leprosy hear you. She could suck an eye through a hedge of nettles.
Oh, I think it's me appendix. Oh, it's killing me. I tell you, I might have to go to hospital.
Oh, well, you wouldn't catch me dead in a hospital. Not after what happened to Donny Gusset and his appendix.
That fella from the dripping factory.
Uh-huh.
He used to hang around with Bowles Doherty.
The very man.
Oh,
You see, he went in for a routine operation, and they decided to try out a new anesthetic on him. It seemed to work. He snoozed off like a baby. But the fact of the matter was, all it did was paralyze him. In all his stillness, he was 100% alert and could feel every incision, every tear of flesh, and every stitch of the needle. Inside his head, he was screaming, but outside, there was silence.
so he felt everything.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, he wasn't very happy when he came out of his anaesthetic a few hours later. He shouted at the nurse, "I felt everything, you hoorin' idiots." "You couldn't have," said the nurse. "We had you doped up to the ears." But as Donny ranted on and told the nurse details of conversations in the operating theatre when he was supposedly asleep, the face of the nurse went white. "I'll sue the lot of yous," said Donny as the nurse left the room.
Jeez, he must have got a few bob and compo, so.
I know.
No?
Donny's visit to hospital was far from over.
Oh, good.
Later on that evening, another patient was wheeled into Donny's room with a lot of to-do. Turns out this new fella was a bit of a VIP.
Oh, who was it? Who was it? Was it that pop fella, Christy Berg?
Well, let's just say it was a very prominent politician. The chief surgeon was there. "Yes, Mr. Politician," he said, "we have found a suitable donor. We'll have you sorted out in no time." 3 a.m. that morning, Donny was awoken by the rattle of his hospital trolley. "Prepare this man for OR and give him 5,000 milligrams of TCP," he heard the chief surgeon say. "I've already had my operation," Donny tried to say, but his mouth wouldn't work. Nor his arms, nor his legs, nor any part of poor Donny's paralysed body.
Oh, jeez. They must have used that newfangled antiseptic on him again.
Donny lay there, his mind in terror, as the politician was wheeled in beside him. The chief surgeon stood over Donny and said, "Crack open this one's ribs. I want his heart in perfect condition for Mr. Politician Man."
Oh, God, he felt everything. What a horrible way to die. All that bone crunching and arteries spurting and intestines up to his ears.
Oh, no, he didn't die.
Huh? Ah, come on, you can't be going round Podge without a heart.
Oh, they gave him a replacement, albeit a Labrador's heart.
How did he ever find out he had a Labrador's heart?
About a week after he got out of hospital, he was locked up for sniffing dogs' bottoms and piddling up every lamppost in town.
I suppose he was barking mad.
Of course he's dead now.
Oh, did the Labrador's heart give in?
I know. Between biting his mother-in-law's varicose veins and chewing on the furniture, his wife had him put down.
Oh, well, what about my appendix, Podge?
Sure, I'll get Grandad O'Leprosy's old fish-gutting knife, and we'll whip it out first thing after breakfast.
Glad so.
Ah, no! That's Granny! The old bat's found the sheep's eyes!
Will I go down and kill her?
No. Best let her go natural. There'd only be talk.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Bucks.
Yeah, look at you.
Have you got the mange? Have you got the mange?
The vet says it's rabies.
Oh. Have you got the rabies? Go on, you get it. And he said, Yeah, and then when well, of course it's the zombie nun. It's always the zombie nun. Come up with something. And he, yeah.
Oh! Oh! Oh!
What's wrong with you?
Oh! I'm blind! I'm blind!
It's your goggles, you idiot.
Oh, yeah, sure, now.
Would you not ever go in the sunbed yourself, Podge? Get a bit of colour into them cheeks of yours.
You'd want to be a scuttering gobshite to be stupid enough to use one of them things.
What?
Sure, did you not hear about Fionnuala Fitzgibblet?
Oh, Fionnuala Fitzgibblet, the red-haired racy one from the drapery. Oh, I haven't seen her in ages.
Ah, well, you wouldn't have. You see, she was bridesmaid to Dolores Gackalon, and it was the day before the wedding. It had been a grand summer, but Fionnuala had been stuck in the drapery shop during the hot spell.
Come here, Podge, you know what?
What?
I was always trying to get a private fitting with her for a nice tight pair of beige jolpers.
Shut up! Anyway, it was only 24 hours to the big day. So she heads into town on the bus to catch up with a bit of tanning.
Yeah.
Yeah, she went into the first salon and got a good half-hour bake. But she still wasn't happy and wanted another session, but they told her there was a half-hour limit.
You wouldn't get much of a tan in a half an hour.
Well, that's what she thought. So she went around the corner into another salon and had another half-hour session. It took 5 more salons and 5 more sessions until she was happy with her colour. She would have had more, but it was closing time in town.
Yeah.
Are you listening to me story, Rog?
Yeah.
You seem to be drifting.
That Fionnuala one, would she be the type now to go nudie in them salons, would she? Oh,
Pipe down, you dirty beggar! Anyway, the wedding was a great success, and everyone was jealous of Fionnuala's golden glow.
so is that it then, or what? I'm off.
No, Rog. The story really begins with the smell.
The smell?
Yeah, it started with a bit of a pong. Sort of like mold, you know.
Oh, yeah, I
And
like
it
that.
slowly got worse. She thought it was coming from the drains in her house, but it seemed to follow her around. Soon after, it dawned on her that the smell was coming from herself.
So what was it then? Did she never hear of a bath or what?
Oh, she spent hours in the bath trying to shift the stench.
Right.
She almost scrubbed till she bled. But it made no difference. The smell was so foul, she lost her boyfriend and her friends began to vomit in her presence. In utter despair, she ran to the doctor's. He was a bit puzzled at first.
Right.
In fact, he had never seen anything quite like it in all his career. He refused to tell her his diagnosis and instead sent her immediately in an ambulance up to a specialist in Dublin.
So what was the smell?
Well, after a couple of more tests, the specialist sat Fionnuala down and broke the horrible news to her. I don't know how you've done it, but you've managed to microwave your internal organs. And as there's no known cure, you're only a couple of weeks from death. You see, the smell was the rotting of her internal organs. It was the sunbed that had cooked her from the inside out, just like a microwave oven.
Oh, my gee! Oh, no, it must be me liver. Me spleen. Cooking. Oh, I should never have got that sunbed. I'll end up like Fionnuala Fitzgibblet.
Oh, shut up, you gobsheen. I recognise that smell. Oh, it's Granny O'Leprosy's bag wafting up through the boards. It must have burst again.
Tell you what,
What?
I better get the bicycle repair kit then.
I'll get the rubber gloves and white spirit. A long night ahead of us. Yes, Granny O'Leprosy. We'll have you there in plenty of time for the Black Mass. Night now, night. When will she ever go and die?
What age is the old bag now?
Sure, nobody knows. When you've a pact with the queer fella, you can go on for centuries.
Can I borrow the car this weekend?
Why? Where are you going?
Well, I was thinking of asking you one out from the abattoir out in the day. And I thought I might go somewhere like Lover's Peak.
Lover's Peak, is it? Are you sick or excited or what? That's the last place you want to bring a woman after what happened there last month.
What happened?
What would you care? You go right ahead.
What?
Flitting around the countryside with your fancy woman, dressed up to the nines like some Dublin pods.
Podge, will you tell us what happened at Lover's Peak?
Well, it was a young couple like yourself and your one. His name was Jack Morples, and he borrowed the car from his father and told him he was going off to football practice. But instead, he was meeting his girlfriend, Mary Stenkert, and they were headed for Lover's Peak.
Oh, it's a great spot, Podge.
They got into the back seat and started fiddling and canoodling with one another.
The dirty beggars. Did he get a look? Did he get a look?
Shut up! It was dark when Mary glanced at her watch. It was well after 9 o'clock, and she knew there'd be hell to pay if she wasn't home by 10. But the car wouldn't start. "I'll ring out Toole's garage," said Jack, as he took his mobile phone out of the glove compartment.
A mobile phone? Jeez, I must get myself one of them yokes. I really impressed Sadie from the slaughterhouse with one of them.
But it didn't work.
Oh.
You see, they were out of range, being that high up in the mountains and all.
Right.
So the young fella decided it'd be best if he walked the 20 miles or so over the mountains to the pub and get some help.
Yeah. He's doing the right thing.
Oh, you think so, do you? You bright spark. An hour passed and Mary's getting a bit jittery.
Right.
So she turned on the radio for a bit of company.
Was it Mary Black singing on the radio? Oh, she stirs my broth.
No, it wasn't Mary Black.
No.
It was a news flash. She listened in horror as they told how a crazed lunatic had escaped that evening from the asylum and was on a murderous rampage.
Jesus.
Just then, Mary jumped as the phone rang. "Hello, Mary," said the voice at the other end. "Is that you, Jack?" she answered. "Jack's not coming back, Mary," said a sinister voice. "If this is a joke, it's not one bit funny," she said, crying. "I think that red dress makes you look a bit tarty." Her mind raced. Was it indeed the crazed killer? Or her boyfriend Jack, playing the cruelest of tricks?
Crazed killer! Crazed killer! Crazed killer!
She nearly jumped out of her skin as the branches of the tree scraped along the roof of the car. She began to cry, but through her tears, she saw Jack, his face lit by torchlight approaching the car. It was Jack's face, all right. But it wasn't his body. The crazed killer had tricked her. He had peeled the skin off Jack's face and used it as a human mask.
For the love of me, Jesus, and St. Mihal on a bicycle.
The scraping she heard only moments earlier were not branches at all, but were the fingernails of her faceless boyfriend, who was hanging upside down from the tree by a meat hook.
Oh, cool!
The police found a woman 2 days later. Her hair as white as snow. At first they thought she was 50 years old, but it was Mary. She had escaped the crazed killer, but had aged 30 years with fright. She was never the same again.
So, did they ever find your man, the crazed killer?
No, but you never know where he might turn up.
Yes! You put me heart crossways.
It's only a bit of chicken skin, you gobsheen. Are you still going out Saturday night with your one?
No, I suppose not.
You're better off. Anyway, Father Fladge is doing an exorcism on the Doolin boy Saturday afternoon. And I've got 2 front row tickets if you're interested.
Great! Sure, who needs girls when you can see a good old 360-degree head spin?
You're right.
The lads.
The boys. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good night then.
Night.
Good night then.
Never again. Flippin' bike! Flippin' chain! It took me 3 flippin' hours to get back here from Ballyfarton.
Did you get me shag?
Yeah, it was El Codger you wanted, wasn't it?
Hold on. Pox! Get back in the garage. Yeah, you've got the
Pox,
rabies.
go on.
Go on, boy. Go on, boy. Hey.
Tell you what. I'm taking a sledgehammer to that old heap and get myself a muddy fox.
It'll be a long, cold, bitter day before I'd curse a bit of machinery.
What are you talking about, Jabberjaw?
It's a horrible tale of death, tragedy, and tractors.
Tractors?
I'm talking about the tractor of doom. Old man Toolin from Wankelstown died suddenly. Turned out he only had one son who'd legged it off on him after he went blind.
Gee.
He was the only heir to Toolin's land and knew nothing of country ways. They found him up in Dublin, pouncing around with a carefree and feckless attitude.
Pouncing around? Sounds like a gobsheen waster to me.
He was, Rog. He had a pile of debts as long as his arm. And on hearing the news, he thought the old man's farm would be a good place to hide out for a while. Upon his arrival, young Toolin was surprised to discover that he now owned a prime 40-acre field. I'll get a few bob for that, he thought. So he advertised to sell it, but there were no buyers.
No buyers?
Why won't you buy me land? He shouted in the pub one night. It was old Scanger O'Houlihan who piped up. "'Tis Druid's burial ground, holy land, not to be tampered with by mortal folk." "Feck the lot of ye," said Toolin. "I'll rear 100 cattle on that land and make a fortune and buy yous all out, you superstitious country agents."
He's some arse-a-gone, that fella.
Oh, 'tis true, 'cause the very next morning he bought himself 100 head of cattle.
I bet he did.
But within 2 weeks, they were all dead.
Dead?
You see, they wouldn't eat the grass. Then in a rage, he sold his father's house and bought a brand new top-of-the-range Massey Ferguson.
The 5,000? She's a beauty.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
But this one was more of a beast.
What do you mean?
Well, he began to plough the field, but young Toolin was still in too much of a rage to notice the human remains that were being ploughed up behind the tractor.
Oh, Jesus. The Druids?
Yeah, and eventually when he did see the bones, he just laughed and kept on ploughing. "I'll make this field mine if it's the last thing I do," he shouted.
Galoot.
And with that, the tractor came to a sudden halt. Young Toolin thought he'd better check the plough to see if those old Druid bones had gotten wedged in the blades.
What happened then? Tell us. What happened?
Well, let's just say there were some fresher bones ploughed into the field that night. Plough, 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 plough. And the unmanned tractor, as if possessed by the force of the Druids, raged around the field for 7 days and 7 nights.
Did it not run out of diesel?
Oh, it did, after a couple of days.
Yeah, totally.
But it kept going all the same.
Jeez.
When eventually it stopped, it had dug a 6-foot-deep trench into the field, in the shape of the sacred Druid's pentacle.
Oh! Whatever happened to the tractor, so?
it was dismantled by a local scrap dealer.
Ah,
And the parts were shipped off all around the country.
that was best.
Yeah, to mend other machinery, from
Aye.
washing machines to lawnmowers, from microwaves to bicycles.
Oh, Jesus.
Every piece, from the smallest nut and bolt, was said to be possessed by an evil force. Sure, aren't we always hearing about mysterious, fatal accidents with machinery seemingly having a mind of its own?
Right. Podge. Mm-hmm. You know my bike. Did you think that might be possessed at all?
You never know. You never know. Night, Rodge.
I'm sure it's a low-down scudder. Podge! Did you see that? Them feckin' rats are getting as big as cats. Should I kill them?
He's big, all right, but not big enough for a good juicy roast.
You're right. Granny would have him downed in one bite. How come though, she always gets first suckle on the tail?
'Cause with a bit of luck, she might choke.
Days were fierce mean.
Yeah, but not as mean as Oxter McLaughlin from Mullin Snot. Oxter lived in a farm with his daughter Dolores. Mrs. McLaughlin had died of utter misery when she was a mere child, and since then Dolores was forced to wait hand and foot on her mean old father. You're my property until you're 18, if you live that long. He treated her more like a slave than a daughter. But the meanest thing of all was having to boil his eggs.
That's hardly mean now, Podge.
Oh, it was when you knew what the penalty was if the eggs were overcooked. He used to sit down without a word and place his precious egg timer in the middle of the table. If she boiled the eggs one grain over the egg timer, he would take his stick to her.
Why didn't she just run away?
Sure. Where would she go? She had no friends. She knew no one. And besides, old McLaughlin had told her the only way she'd leave the farm was in a box. Once a month, she was permitted to go to the library with her father and take one book home. Oh, it was nearly always the same book.
Was it The Stud by Jackie Collins? Oh.
No, it was a book on foreign places. And she'd while away at her chores, dreaming of being swept off her feet by some handsome man. And when a new librarian started work, called Ruarloch ní Bowlon, it looked like her dreams might become a reality.
Tell us more.
So she came up with a clever plan, and the two fell in love via notes they used to pass to each other in the pages of her library books. And old McLaughlin suspected nothing. She wrote a note back to him, professing her undying love. She would elope with him and meet him at the crossroads at midnight. That evening, Dolores handed the book with the note to her lover and went home and secretly packed for her new life.
Come on, Podge. Too much tale and not enough tragedy.
At 11:30, she snuck out. Old McLaughlin was snoring in front of the fire. As she was leaving, she stole his precious egg timer.
A bit of revenge. I like that.
Midnight at the crossroads, the librarian's car approached. Her heart beat wildly as she opened the passenger's door, only to be greeted not by the lips of her lover, but by the clenched fist of her father.
But what about the boyfriend?
He was sitting in the back seat.
Would he not help her?
Sure, how could he with an axe through his head? You'll bury this bugger like you did your mother, the old man said. That young fella yours put up a bit of a fight, gave me quite an appetite. I look forward to me eggs in the morning. Dolores sat in shock as they drove up the winding roads to the quarry.
The quarry's a great place for burying bodies.
The car pulled up at the edge of the quarry. And old man McLaughlin told Dolores to get the shovel out of the boot. It was to be the last chore he ever gave Dolores, as she used the shovel as a lever, and with all the strength as she could muster from all the years of hard grind, she pushed the car over the edge, and it burst into flames as it hit the quarry floor. The papers said the young librarian committed suicide and drove himself into the quarry because Dolores hadn't turned up at the crossroads that night. Rumour has it she's in Boston and has boiled eggs with her father every morning.
I thought he was dead.
He is. But she replaced the grains of sand in his beloved egg timer with the ashes of his corpse. 4 minutes worth of ashes, mind.
But, didn't boil them hard.
Yeah. Just the way she likes them.
Serves him right well.
Oh, there. How are you, Pox?
Look, Podge, look.
What?
Pox he's caught that rat in his mouth. Look.
No, that's not the rat. He's been in the chamber pot again. Oh, get it up, you'll feel better about that. Pops, get away from that puke. Stop eating it. And that's the last time you're going to eat my shite. Get out of here, you dirty devil. Get out of the house. Get away with you. Oh, you'll feel better in a minute. Go on, you good cat. Go on.
I'm shagged and shattered.
Who needs a vet when you've got hands like mine? Go on, hurry. Where have you been?
Huh?
Where have you been?
Out doing me kissograms.
Oh.
Tell you what, though, that farmer Queelan is giving me an awful beard rash.
How much did you get? Money, you know.
What did I get? Oh, money. What do you mean, money? You mean I'm supposed to get paid for it? I was just doing it for the crack.
You big gobshade. If you don't get some cop on, you'll end up brainless like a victim of Jeffrey Finkel, America's #1 serial killer.
What are you talking about?
It all began in America in 1963, a town called Buttcrack, West Virginia. A family lived in number 763 Colon Avenue. Papa Finkel, you see, was a Peruvian monkey minder and arrived in America with 100 assorted primates destined for West Virginia State Zoo. He looked after the monkeys like they were his own children. And when one of them died, he would eat their brains.
He what?
Sure, there was a Peruvian tradition that if you ate a monkey's brain, it would make you a wiser man.
Jesus, them foreign feckers would eat anything.
And sometimes, for a special treat, he'd bring back a bit of brain for his own son, hoping it might make him a little wiser. And I suppose in some respects it did, as little Jeffrey Finkel got straight A's all the way through school and into college until he was a professor.
Jesus. All that from eating monkey brains as a kid.
His father's tradition convinced him that more brains he ate, the cleverer he would get. So he continued to eat monkey brains well into his 20s. But fresh monkey brains were in short supply.
So what did he do?
Well, the closest thing to a monkey's brain is obviously a human brain.
Jesus, the Scudder and Amador was a headhunter. Where did he get the dead bodies?
He was a clever bugger, was Jeffrey Finkel. Because every year, the night after graduation day, he would hold a special party for his cleverest students. You see, no one really noticed that one of them would be missing the next day, as they were all too excited to be heading home on summer break. But each year the missing student would wake up, strapped to a customized torture rack in the large and lightless basement of number 763 Colon Avenue. The first thing they could feel was a dull ache at the back of their head. The Finkel bore a perfect round hole through their skull, just about large enough to get a teaspoon through.
What was he at?
A spoon of brain a day makes you brainy, they say.
Must have been agony for them.
Oh, no. Sure, your brain has no nerve endings at all.
Oh.
They felt nothing as he scooped away. Maybe the odd leg twitch or a bit of memory loss and eventually paralysis.
So, how long now would a brain last him?
A few weeks. He knew he was finished when he could feel the spoon scrape along the back of the eyeballs. Anyway, Finkel married a beautiful woman who had no idea of his gruesome past. He even had a son. But, unfortunately, his son hadn't inherited his father's intelligence. Finkel decided there was only one thing to do with his stupid son, and that was to let him in on the, family tradition. So he brought his son down to the basement and through the false wall to where his brain-scooping accoutrements were kept hidden. "Show me how you did it, Dad," his son asked nervously. And Finkel himself stood into the rack where his many victims met their doom. "Strap me in, son, and I'll tell you how to scoop a brain and gain intelligence. You'll develop quite a taste for it." Finkel laughed. But it was the second last thing Finkel ever heard.
What was the last thing he heard?
The last thing Geoffrey Finkel ever heard was the sound of the drill in his son's hand as it burrowed into the bone of his skull.
Drill! Drill!
It was a case of father like son.
The son using his head for once.
Yeah, his father's head.
A trip off the old block. Good catch. We're home now. There we are. Hey, how are you?
Oh, how are you?
You'll never guess who I met while I was up in the vets today.
Who?
That fella with the terrible affliction. You know, all the sons had the same problem.
How do you mean?
Well, let's just say that every pair of trousers had 3 legs.
I know who you're talking about. Nicky Moore.
That's right. There was the father, Dick Moore.
That's right. And the brother, Willie Moore.
Yeah.
And what was the youngest one called?
They just called him the lad.
Yeah. Do you remember that year the cousin came over from somewhere foreign? Germany, I think.
Jesus, I do. Sure, he could hardly walk with the affliction.
Oh, terrible.
He had to ride a lady's bike. What was his name?
Helmut Moore.
Helmut Moore. That's it. Wasn't it the Moors that lived across the river from that waster, Rory O'Pleurisy? Remember him, the big bollock?
That's right, but that's not something you'd say in front of the Moors. Do you remember Mrs. O'Pleurisy?
Tell you what, Mrs. O'Pleurisy, she was the nicest old one you could ever meet.
She was that. And Rory knew from a young age that his mother was a soft touch. His father was the only one that could get him out of bed and make him do a bit of work around the place.
So what happened to the father?
He just never came home from work one day.
Okay.
No one knew what happened to him.
I suppose Rory and his mother were heartbroken all the same.
Oh, she was devastated, but he didn't give a shite. With the father out of the way, he was on the pig's back. Ma, where's me dinner? Ma, get us some fags. Ma, get us me slippers. He used to whinge, and she'd do everything for him. 'Cause without her husband, young Rory was the only family she had left.
Tell you what, that fella's a right arsehake.
Ah, he was. Sure, she had 3 cleaning jobs just to keep him in drinking money and for putting on the GGs. And if she had no money for him, he threatened to burn the one thing she held dear. Her wedding photo that hung above the fireplace. She often looked at the photo and wept, wondering whether her beloved husband was alive or dead. One day the mother got an awful flu and couldn't go to work. Rory was getting impatient as the money was running out. Then one evening, after spending the last bit of money they had on drink, he took the wedding photo from above the fireplace and smashed it on the grate. Poor Mrs. O'Pleuris's heart was broken in as many pieces as the frame.
What a scuffering gobsheen that fella was.
The next day, Mrs. O'Pleurisy went up into the attic in search of a replacement frame. She was sure there was one up there that would suit. Perhaps in the old wedding chest. She hadn't looked in it for 30 years. She lifted the dusty lid, and inside was greeted by her husband's rotting corpse, with maggots crawling through the eye socket.
Was it the son? Did she call the guards, huh?
No. She went back downstairs, calm as you like, sellotaped the wedding photo together, stuck it back over the fireplace, and took a carving knife to her wrists.
For the mother of St. Bernard in a Batmobile! I never heard anything as tragic. And that son probably got away with everything, did he?
Well, not quite.
Oh.
He had his mother buried in a pauper's grave and was quite happy to live off the insurance. 3 weeks after the funeral, there was a knock at the door. It was the brand new parish priest. I'm not the holy type, Father, so if you don't mind, he said, trying to close the door. The priest pushed past. I'm here to give the last rites, my son, he said. Where is the poor unfortunate? He explained that a woman had called to the parish house that morning and said that a young man at this address was in need of the last rites and a chance to cleanse his soul. What are you talking about? Get out, Rory said. But that's the woman there, the priest said, as he pointed at the photograph. Rory's eyes met the eyes of his mother. Rory felt a coldness grip around his neck as he fell to the ground, stone cold dead, with the weight of 1,000 mortal sins.
Jesus.
Anyway, so what did the vet say?
He said it's best we put her down.
No. All right, so brave face on. No point in putting off the inevitable. First thing in the morning, we'll dig a hole in the back garden.
Very sad.
I know.
Ah, well, I suppose Granny's had a good owl innings all the same.
Oh, she has to be sure.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Sure, I'm in love.
You're going round like a bitch in heat. Well, you're not at your part-time job tonight.
I was, and that's where I met her.
You what?
This beauty came in and she said she wanted it fast, so I pulled out my pump and I filled her up.
You what?
I gave her the full service.
What sort of job did you get yourself into?
The night shift at the filling station.
Ah. Well, what was this one like then?
Oh, Podge. She's a cross between Mary Black and Enya. Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah, and she gave me her number. She was going to ring her for a date. Jesus, she really floats my boat.
One question, Rodge. Did she have an emerald tooth?
Yeah. How did you know?
Well, you've only gotten yourself involved with the zombie bride of Seamus Shenanigans, the vampire leprechaun.
What?
There's a hex on you now, and you're doomed to a life of undeadness, like Barney Pollip.
What are you talking about? Who's Barney Pop? And what's all this vampire leprechaun nonsense?
You see, Seamus Shenanigans was one of a kind. A vampire leprechaun. And instead of collecting gold, he collected blood. He had a big old pot of blood that he'd drink to keep him sprightly and youthful, since he was a couple of 1,000 years old. And there was one type of blood that he craved.
What was it?
The most potent and virile type of blood. Young bachelor's blood.
Jesus.
But not all young bachelors. Fellas who go to mass and abide by the laws would be immune to his blood-sucking tendencies. But those with low moral standards were his favourite delicacy. Let me tell you, young Barney Pollip fancied himself as a bit of a ladies' man, and one evening in his shop, a real beauty waltzed in. He thought to himself, here comes another notch in my bedpost. He flirted with her for a couple of minutes, then carried her messages out to the car for her. Why don't I close up the shop and you come over to my place, he said. Oh, but I'm a married woman, the beauty replied. If it doesn't bother you, love, it doesn't bother me, he said with a wink. That was the last time the shutters ever went down on Barney Pollip's shop.
Yeah, but what happened over at his place?
She sucked him dry.
On the first date?
Yep, her and her husband Seamus Shenanigan had a blood fest of bachelor's blood. The last thing Barney Pollip saw was the glint of an emerald tooth.
Oh, Jesus. You're right. It is the one from the filling station. Well, I don't want to be a vampire leprechaun's dinner. I come a bloodless zombie and live in darkness for all eternity.
Well, there's only one thing you can do to lift the vampire leprechaun's curse.
I'll do anything, Podge. Anything.
You must run, if I get this correct, you must run bollock naked through a bed of nettles 13 times, shouting, away with you leprechaun, away with you leprechaun, under the next full moon.
Well, there's a full moon tonight, Podge.
Huh? Oh, well, off you go. And good luck to you.
Right.
Yeah, hello, is that the fine young thing from the filling station? Yeah, I'm just ringing you up about that date. Saturday night, 8 o'clock. I'll be there. Wear something, tight. Hello, is that the guards? Yeah, Podge and Leprosy here from the old asylum. I mean Ballydung Manor. There's a fella running stark bollock naked around my garden shouting about leprechauns. Yeah, if you can lock him up and throw away the key until about Sunday morning, yeah. There'll be a nice side of bacon in it for you. All right, officer. Bye now.
Away with you, leprechaun! 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 Away with you...
You're a devil. I got a phone call from the embalmers. Are you eating them corpses again? You'll spoil your dinner. Get away from that blood. Get away. So, how'd you get on at the market today?
Huh? Oh, I got some great stuff.
What's
Look, this was in a box. It's the best thing. It's a metal detector. What do you think?
You scuttering gobsheen, that's Satan's tool, that is.
I've got the queer fella's tool in me hands.
Indeed you have.
That.
That machine could unearth demonic artifacts that could possess your soul with 1,000 curses.
1,000 curses? Jesus. Tell us more.
A young fella called Prunchis ní Crotch had studied archaeology in Trinity College up in Dublin.
Where all the Dublin ponces live.
He was heading off to South America on his first expedition in search of the lost Inca village of Licky Bum Bum.
Wow. Sounds like one of them places where the native tribeswomen would be wandering around with not much more than a strip of bark covering their hairy parts and all their booties and everything flying around the place. And you'd be able to...
Now, what would Mary Black think if she heard you talking like that? Let me tell you this despicable tale. After chopping down 5,000 acres of rainforest, Prunchis and his Inca Sherpas found the lost village and began to unearth its treasures.
What kind of treasures?
Gold. And young Ní Crotch, he was after the most legendary Inca treasure of all, the golden arse of Licky Bum Bum.
The golden arse, did you say?
Yep. And one day Ní Crotch found it. It was solid gold and was said to be fashioned in the shape of the buttocks of the Inca god Patachiqui, who was so important in Inca mythology that it was said the sun shone out of his arse. Yeah, hence the saying.
Podge.
What?
Have those Inca fellas got nothing better to do than to make statues out of other fellas' arses?
Well, young Ní Crotch called on his Inca Sherpas to help him unearth his find, but when they saw the statue, they fled terrified. Oh, be warned, for it is said he who touches the golden arse will be cursed of 1,000 curses.
That's a ferocious amount of curses. Suppose he took the statue, though.
Indeed he did.
The scuttering gobsheen.
It was stuck in a crate and dispatched home by sea, whilst Ní Crotch finished his business. The statue was sent to Prunchis' hometown of Castleberthorn. A couple of months later, Prunchis arrived home to a mass funeral. All his family and the entire village had been wiped out. It dawned on Prunchis that the curse was spreading like a plague.
But how come now that he wasn't dead, Podge?
Well, like any good curse, the only way of resolving the situation was to return the cursed object to its rightful home. And that had to be done by the person who stole it in the first place. But Prunchis was ignorant in the ways of cancelling a curse. He decided the best thing to do was buy a big old safe and lock the golden arse inside, so it would remain untouched for all eternity.
Not a bad idea, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. Until it was stolen by a notorious thieving gang.
A gang of arse bandits!
Yep. And you know, he was delighted to be rid of the cursed statue. Oh, yeah. Life seemed to return to normal for Ní Crotch, and he swore never to be greedy again. In fact, 10 years had passed, and it was Ní Crotch's wedding day. They were, in their honeymoon suite that night. She walked over to the bed all sexy-like and said, "I've something to show you. I think you'll like it." He sat up all excited in bed.
I bet he was.
"I saw this and I knew you'd love it," she said as she heaved a present out from under the bed.
Jesus, it wasn't.
It was the golden arse. As she lifted it, she screamed in pain as her bodily fluids turned to sand. The curse had claimed Ní Crotch's bride.
Did they get a chance to do the old...
No.
Oh, that's a rough curse.
Yeah.
Did he bring the statue back?
No, he died of a broken heart that very night. And the statue is still at large.
Tell you what, them curses are a bugger in your back.
They are indeed, indeedy do. So, What else did you get down the market?
Oh, a bargain!
Huh.
Something I've been wanting for ages. A snazzy new bike stand.
The golden horse! You scuttering gobshite! Look at him! He curses upon the...
I know!
Oh,
An arse is an arse in any man's language.
You're an idiot!
It's
Oh,
we're
no!
Podge!
What?
You think your side of the bed might be free this weekend?
No, why?
Well, I think my boat might have come in with Sadie from the abattoir.
So you want me to go to the spare room so that you and...
yeah, fair play.
No, feck off, you randy pup. You'll end up like Podge and Mahoney, or Pony Mahoney, as the ladies of Abbey Sphincter used to call him.
Pony?
He was a typical ladies' man, a real stud. He was obsessed with his looks and couldn't pass a mirror without looking at himself. He'd brag how he bedded every woman in town and how he had run out of bedpost to notch. It was like a game to him. All he was interested in was getting his end away. Variety is the spice of life, he used to say. I'd ride any woman with a heartbeat. He cared nothing for the women he seduced. Of course you're the only one. What's your name again? And as soon as he had his wicked way, he dropped them like a hot snot.
The scuttering Omadon.
Oh, he couldn't care less about the consequences of his actions. The broken hearts, the broken marriages, and the many children running around the streets looking suspiciously like him. That was until last year when a young newlywed couple moved into town.
No. He wouldn't go after newlyweds now, straight off their honeymoon.
Ripe for the pick and Rodge. The moment he clapped eyes on the fresh-faced young beauty, he knew he had to have her. He got wind from the locals that the husband was a professional type and had to commute out of town to work. And when the husband's away, the pony will play.
So, did the Pony Express make a special delivery?
He went into the art shop where she worked and turned on the charm 100%. I'm a famous local artist. Do you fancy posing nude for me? She said she wasn't the modelling type. Well, how about a shag then? I'm not into the old flabby type, she replied sternly.
Jeez, I'd say the gobsheen didn't like that.
Oh no, because as far as he was concerned, he looked like a 21-year-old man. This encounter made Pony more determined than ever, and his sole obsession was now this ultimate conquest.
So, what did he do?
He pestered the young woman morning, noon and night. One day she turned to him and said, I'm not interested in you and I never will be. You need a man to give you some good loving. That dickhead of a husband of yours is never around. He grabbed her and forced himself on her. But she was quick. She kneed him where it hurt.
Right in the gels.
You're a feisty young filly, but I've a couple more charms up my sleeve. The next day in the hairdresser's, he was leafing through a magazine. He saw an ad. Look 10 years younger. Plastic surgery for men. It was a revelation. She said she didn't like the old flabby type. Well, he was going to turn back the clock. He headed for Dublin and checked in the very next day. I want the works, he said. It'll be expensive, said the consultant. She'll be worth it, he replied.
Podge.
What?
And this plastic surgery lark now, do they do that on all parts of the body?
Yeah.
So, if I had a small nose, could they make it bigger?
Yeah, but I wouldn't bother with your nose. It's your Mickey that needs the attention. Anyway, the next day, Pony woke up. His face was itching and his stomach was sore from the liposuction. Get these bandages off! I want to see the younger me! He shouted. When he peeled the bandages off, Pony didn't get quite what he had expected. His face looked the same, except his penis had been grafted to his forehead.
For the love of Saint Margot in a rickshaw!
He fell to his knees in shock. Who's the dickhead now, Mr. Mahoney? Said the young consultant. I trust you won't be harassing my wife and the women of Abbey Sphincter anymore.
Jeez. His wife. So whatever happened to Pony after that?
Oh, he became quite a successful actor.
Oh.
In the West End of London. Playing the lead role in the stage version of The Elephant Man.
Come here. Did he have a big part in it, did he?
Yeah, very good.
Will he be bringing it to Broadway, will he?
Oh, very, very good,
You'd want
very
to be
good.
cocksure to be in that business, though, I tell you. There's probably a big knob over there now.
Very good, Roger.
Good cat.
All right, so, good boy, Puck.
I can see the worm's head.
Okay, I've got... Hold on.
Come on.
This one's a fighter.
Stay still, Pox.
Ah.
Did you get him?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, look at that. One's a beauty.
Away with you, Pucks. Come on,
What?
now.
Away
Come on
with
now.
you.
That's the ball,
Let's
now.
get rid of this yoke. Yeah. I see the bypass is nearly finished.
Huh?
They say it'll be ready for the millennium.
You mean the alien landing site? There won't be a millennium.
Now, what?
Little green fellas are coming to annihilate us and take over the planet. So I wouldn't plan too far ahead, Rog.
Podge, why would aliens be coming to Ballydung?
Because of Finbar O'Pubicon.
El seal 'em up Finbar from the Pubicon Creamery.
Yep. The man who single-handedly sealed this planet's doom.
Jesus.
I think it was 1965. Finbar and his brothers Phelim and Scrotum were out rounding the cows up. Suddenly, there were flashing lights. Something hovered above them, and then it disappeared. As the brothers tell it, Finbar went missing. They found him 15 minutes later at the far end of the field. But the weird thing was that although he was only gone for 15 minutes, he had 5 days beard growth.
Alien abduction. But what would they want with him? Did they probe the arse off him, did they?
No! Finbar had a very pleasant experience. They made him a cup of tea with a slice of brack and talked of agricultural matters.
So, what you're saying now is that the little green fellas, right?
Yeah?
Travelled 15 million light years in a flying saucer to Ballydung
Uh-huh.
to talk down Phelim up Finbar about farming.
Yeah. But what they were most interested in talking about was manure. His methods of procuring it, the quality and consistency, and all aspects of manure management. You see, these little green fellas, survival depended on manure.
They weren't eating shite, were they?
No! They explained to Finbar that the plant life on their home planet of Kaka was near extinction, as their own fertilizer resources were almost depleted.
They came in search of number 2s.
Yeah, Finbar O'Pubicon, being the entrepreneur, or should I say, entrepreneur, saw an opening to make some cash. So he set a fair price. £50 a bag, hey. Half price to you green fellas, 'cause you've come such a long way, hey. The aliens agreed the price, and have been taking tons of manure back to their planet every quarter moon since 1965.
That's a load of shite, Podge.
Indeed. In fact, their demand increased year by year. So Finbar dosed the cows with syrup of figs to get a run on production. A few months back, curiosity got the better of him. Jesus, hey, I wonder what it's like on their planet, he thought to himself, and he stowed away in the ship with his dung. The precious cargo continued to be loaded. The stench was overpowering. So Finbar made his way into the ventilation shaft. It was then he overheard two aliens.
If it's our final cargo, we will have stockpiled enough manure to fuel 1,000 of our battleships and invade planet Earth.
Finbar then realised that by becoming a crap courier and selling feces fuel to the enemy, he had single-handedly sealed the Earth's doom. A guilt overcame him, and he pulled the grill off the ventilation shaft and slid through to the outside. The giant rockets were just starting up. Finbar knew what he had to do. He took a lighter to his sock and shoved it back down the vent and ran like the clappers. When the sock hit the methane, like one great fart, it blew the spaceship to Kingdom Come.
So he saved the Earth from the little green fellas.
Not at all. They'd more than enough fuel. In fact, they're ready to invade. All they're waiting for is the alien landing site to be completed. Or the bypass, as you like to call it, Rodge.
So the little green fellas, right? They're waiting for Ballydung County Council to finish the bypass before they invade the planet.
Yeah.
Should we be safe for another 1,000 years or so?
I wouldn't be too sure, Rodge. I wouldn't be too sure.
Oh, jeez. So anyway, how many worms did we pull out of Pox?
Oh, 9, Rodge. I think that's a record.
Jeez, that's great. That'll make for a brilliant day's fishing tomorrow. Jesus!
Hey.
Podge! What's that? Jesus! Podge! Where's he gone? Oh, God! The aliens have taken the brother! Oh, Jesus! The little green fellas are coming! It's great to get back early. She was a witch. She drowned. For the love of St. Benji in a bottle, who or what have you got there, Podge?
Rodge, Mildred Rodge. She's my new security device, if you must know.
What? Like a smoke alarm? Yeah, I thought I smelt burning rubber.
Shut up, you scuttering gobsheen. She's a burglar deterrent. If the burglars see two people in the room when they peer through the windows, they are less likely to rob the place.
All right. Oh, that explains it so. But
Yeah.
what was all that grunting and squeaking I heard when I came in?
I was inflating her with me foot pump.
Didn't look like a foot you were pumping her with. I see Councillor Goggins is off to Brussels again.
Oh.
Says he's off to get some EEC money for the bypass.
I doubt that. That's a big scam.
Huh?
All them politicians go to Brussels to get new organs.
Huh?
Body parts of all kinds. New fingers if you get one lopped off. New liver if yours is looking a bit yellow. New head if you like.
Now, where would you be getting a head that would be an identical match of your own?
Clones, Rodge. Identical beings growing from samples of your DNA.
Now, that's science fiction, Podge.
It's science fact, Rodge.
So right, if I accidentally chopped me foot off whilst digging a makeshift grave, how would it work?
You'd simply ring Brussels, tell them what body part you needed, they'd chop it off your double and have it ready to be attached upon your arrival. In the top secret high security centre, there was a young body double known as RX-75. So far he hadn't lost any body parts to his owner and felt like the luckiest double alive. His best friend Z7 had donated 50% of his body to his owner and was still only alive because of half a mile of tubing and a plastic sack where his arse used to be.
Jesus. So what kept them going?
Well, They were told that if they outlived their owners, they would be given a name, a new identity, and set free into the real world. RX-75 used to dream of the outside world. And every couple of years, a double would be released, and then all the clones gathered to cheer the lucky one as they boarded the lift of new beginnings. RX-75's friend used to tell him, "I feel your time for freedom will come soon."
Oh, was that the arse bag, lad?
No,
Huh?
it was his secret girlfriend.
Oh, right.
She wasn't much to look at, as her owner had quite a few plastic surgery disasters. Most of her body surface had been, well, stripped away for skin grafts, but he loved her all the same. He made a pact with his girlfriend that whichever of them got out first would wait for the other, and they would live out their remaining years together and free.
So did they ever get free?
Oh yeah, aged 43 and without a single surgical procedure in his lifetime, RX-75's number was called on the intercom. "We would like to inform you that your owner has died, and we are obliged to end your incarceration here. From this day forth, your given name will be John Burns." Then he returned to his group of friends and bade them farewell. Out of earshot of the guards, he told his girlfriend his new name, and that he would soon see her on the outside. A tear of joy rolled down her face as he boarded the lift of new beginnings.
I hate a happy ending.
Oh, it doesn't end there. The lift began its descent. He could hear the cheer of his friends fade away from above. In a few seconds, he would taste fresh air for the first time. The doors opened. He was blinded by the light flooding in. And the flames in the cloning facility's very own crematorium.
Jeez, I thought they were going to be set free when the owners died.
Not at all. They lied to them. Once the owner died, there was no money to pay for the clones' upkeep. Sure, there was no use for them anywhere.
What about your man's girlfriend?
Well, as he went down the lift, she smiled and repeated her lover's new name. A name she needed to remember for when her time for freedom would come. John Burns. John Burns.
Burn! 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 There you are.
Anyway,
Yeah, right.
night, Rodge.
Night, Podge. Night, Mildred. Podge,
What?
did you not put the cat out? I think it's in the bed.
No. That'd be Mildred. She's, very realistic.
Oh, that's a grand fire.
Yeah.
Jesus, what was that?
It's probably just the wind. Of course, it could be the wailing of the banshee.
Jesus, why is it they appear again?
Well, every family has their own banshee, and she wails shortly before a family member passes away. It's sort of a warning, they say, and only the immediate family can hear the blood-curdling cry. Ah, I remember now. There was a family called the Boyles from Hacksball Cross. They had only one son.
Anal Boyle. Yeah, I remember him. Wasn't he doing a line with Henrietta McGee, the one from the Hacksballs Cross 24-hour bowl and quasar?
They went out for a couple of years. Then there was a bit of a family indiscretion.
Was he a bit flahoolock with his flute, was he?
Shut up, you scuttering arsehole. Anyway, the two were forced to separate. He was banished to America, she to God knows where. After a couple of years, he was settling nicely into his life in New York.
Oh, that place is a den of disease and promiscuity, where brazen hussies flaunt their silicone-enhanced buttocks and lure you with their bedroom eyes to their high-rise palaces full of PVC, leathers, whips, chains and perverted electrical devices, shouting, I've been a bad boy, Mammy!
Will you calm down? You're as fidgety as a bin liner full of kittens. Anyway, Aidan got a job on the sites. Had a basement flat in the Bronx that he shared with a couple of fellas. One night after their usual game of cards, Enel went to bed and dreamt of home. There was a woman's face in the dream that he didn't recognise. It unsettled him. The woman began to wail uncontrollably. The wail turned to a high-pitched scream. He woke up and ran from the bedroom with his hands over his ears. His friends were still playing cards. "Oh, can you not hear the screaming?" he shouted at them, but they heard nothing. With the ringing of the phone, the screaming ceased. It was Enel's mother. "Come home, son. Your father's dropped dead."
It was the banshee warning him about the father's death.
Indeed.
Yep.
Enel caught the first flight home. After the funeral, he decided to stay on a few more days to look after his mother, who was inconsolable. That night, a similar nightmare creeped into his head, and the screaming woman appeared for the second time.
Jesus!
The blood-curdling wail, twice as loud and twice as painful as before. Oh, he ran downstairs to find his mother, stone-cold dead, with an empty packet of sleeping tablets on the floor beside her.
He must have realised it was the banshee at that stage.
Oh, he did. The banshee's wail was a sound he never wanted to hear again, as he was the last in the Boyle family line.
Jesus. Imagine being warned about your own death and there not being a thing you can do about it.
Oh, he was going to avoid that at all costs. He got as drunk as he could and then took a white-hot poker to his eardrums.
For the love of St. Pamela in a jacuzzi, he burnt his feckin' ears out.
Yep, but he thought it was worth it, never to hear the banshee's spine-chilling screams again. He went back to America deaf as a post.
Yeah?
Over the 15 years that followed, he learnt sign language, lip reading, and managed to live a near-normal life in his silent world. It was New Year's 1990. He went to bed early and started dreaming of home.
Uh-oh.
Then the screaming started.
But he was deaf. All for nothing.
Deaf or not, asleep or awake, you cannot escape the banshee's wail. "You'll not take me, you banshee bitch! My time's not come!" He grabbed a revolver from his bedside locker and ran wildly around his apartment, turning all the lights off. It was then he caught a glimpse of a figure at the front door. "Ah, you'll not take me, banshee!" he shouted above the wailing as he peppered the door with a hail of bullets.
Bang, bang,
The wailing
bang,
stopped. He ran to the front door and pulled it open. And there, lying on the ground, smothered in blood, was a young girl with a suitcase. There was a note in her hand. He read it. His face turned pale as he realised that the little indiscretion all those years ago had produced a daughter.
Oh.
And the banshee's wail was not for him, but for his beautiful little girl.
Well, isn't that gas? And your man after blowing her to smithereens.
At the realisation of his horrible mistake, the wailing started up again. He knew what to do.
Lead sandwich.
Yep. He put the gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. And with that, the Boyle banshee was banished forever.
Jesus, isn't life fierce tragic for some people though altogether?
Ah, it is. Are you going to put the cat out?
Huh? Ah, no. Let's let him burn a little longer.
Or at least in the morning.
Ballydong Radio!
Langway! Yes, indeed. You're listening to BDR, Ballydong Radio. Now over to me brother, DJ Rodge, for today's deaths.
Today's deaths. Gonad O'Reilly from Fiddler's Minge died under mysterious
Rog,
circumstances.
no, that's tonight.
Jesus. So, Gonad, if you're listening, enjoy the rest of the day. This evening's death of the day, with a prize of a Ballydong Radio wreath, goes to Mrs. Oral Kavanagh. And of course, those of us who knew Oral remember her fondly as the local bike.
Indeed, Rod, sure. Everyone had a ride on Mrs. Kavanagh.
And she brought years of enjoyment servicing the men and the women of Ballydung.
When did she retire?
Did she not do her back in when Father Flange was up on her?
Ah, no. It was after that. Oh, she retired when the Egan's opened the bicycle shop in 1973. Sure, it broke her heart. There was no longer a place in the community for a human bike.
She is better off dead, so.
Yes, now it's time for a tune. It's those local lads done good with their latest single from their album, Down the Furry Glen. It's Fester and Ailin with the ballad of tropical diseases. If you're off on holiday, remember your insurance, you'd better pay. Have you had your jab, son, or taken some precautions? If not, you might come back dead. Foreign food looks tasty fair. I wouldn't stomach it, I wouldn't dare. The French, they eat their frogs. The Koreans eat their dogs. Eat some, you'll end up in a box. Tropical diseases will give you coughs and wheezes, peeling skins and boils and sores and pus oozing from every pore. A swollen sack, a lump in your back, you're up to your ears in gore. A septic rash, a nasty hack, there's symptoms many more. 48 hours on the bowl. A spider's crawled right up your hole. Laid 10,000 eggs and crawled back down your legs. They hatch and eat your insides out. Oh, tropical diseases will give you coughs and wheezes, peeling skins and boils and sores and pus oozing from every pore. A swollen sack, a lump in your back, you're up to your ears in gore. A septic rash, a nasty hack, there's symptoms many more. Beriberi malaria, kidney worm disease, dengue, hemorrhagic fever and filariasis, triatonite bugs and leprosy and fungicidal gout, hemorrhoidal dysentery, sclerosis of the mouth, schizomatosis, onchocerosis, arboviruses, elephantitis, Chagas disease, lymphatic filariasis. Hey! Great tune there from Fester and Ailin.
News flash just in, Podge. The cockfight in Brown's Barn has been cancelled between Felicio Kelly and Malachi Ward due to irregularities in the size of their cocks.
Oh, Malachi is claiming that Jimmy has been pumping up his cock artificially. Now that's cheating in my book. You're listening to BDR, Ballydung Radio.
Podge, I was thinking of entering my cock in that competition.
I wouldn't bother, Rog. I've seen your cock. It's a bit scrawny.
Huh?